I'm 54 years old. My name's Diane. I used to think I had love all figured out. Marriage, a routine, quiet evenings, a life built on predictability. I wasn't looking for excitement. I didn't need sparks or surprises. That's what I told myself anyway. I thought I had everything I wanted until that night changed how I saw everything. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please don't make the same mistake I did. It was a Friday evening, one of those slow, humid nights where the air hangs heavy and the clock feels stuck. My husband Mark had left that morning for a weekend fishing trip with his brother. I had the house to myself and I was looking forward to doing absolutely nothing. I'd taken a long bath, slipped into my soft cotton pajamas, the ones with the little blue flowers on them, faded from too many washes, and settled on the couch with a glass of wine and a rerun of some old romantic drama I'd seen a dozen times. It felt like comfort. Something safe and predictable. Then came the knock. 3 sharp taps, not loud, but firm enough to send a little jolt through me. It was almost 9 p.m. and we never got visitors that late. I set down my wine, hesitated, and padded barefoot across the wooden floor to the front door. When I opened it, I saw him. Aaron, Mark's nephew. I hadn't seen him in nearly a year, not since his mother's funeral. He looked different now. Older, sharper, but still with that boyish awkwardness he'd always had. His dark hair was wet, clinging to his forehead from the rain that had started just moments before. "Hey, Aunt Diane," he said, his voice lower than I remembered. "Sorry to just show up. My phone died, and I was supposed to meet Uncle Mark here. He told me I could crash in the guest room tonight, if I got stuck." I didn't realize he wasn't home. I blinked, still processing the sight of him. He was holding a small duffel bag, shoulders slightly hunched, like he wasn't sure if he should be standing there. "Oh, Aaron. Yes, of course." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Mark's out for the weekend, but you're welcome to stay." He offered a shy smile and stepped inside. The moment he did, I suddenly became very aware of what I was wearing. No bra, my pajama top clinging lightly, my hair still damp. I crossed my arms over my chest and forced a smile. "It's pouring out there," I said, trying to fill the silence. "Yeah." Caught me walking from the bus stop. Didn't think the rain would hit so fast. I led him to the guest room and pulled out some extra towels from the linen closet. He thanked me quietly and started drying his hair, as I lingered awkwardly in the hallway. "I'll let you get settled," I said. "If you're hungry, there's leftover pasta in the fridge." "Thanks, Aunt Diane. I'm good. Just tired." But he didn't close the door right away. He stood there holding the towel, looking at me with this strange expression. Part gratitude, part something I couldn't quite name. His eyes lingered on me a second longer than they should have. Or maybe it was just my imagination. I backed away and returned to the kitchen, trying to shake off the odd feeling settling in my chest. It had been a long time since a man looked at me like that. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how he'd looked at me, and how I had felt standing there in my pajamas, suddenly not invisible. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain patter against the windows. Around midnight, I got up to pour myself another glass of wine. That's when I saw him again. Aaron was sitting on the couch in the dark, just the soft glow from the hallway light touching his face. He looked up as I stepped into the living room. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't mean to startle you." "Couldn't sleep either." I laughed softly. "You and me both." There was a pause heavy with something neither of us named. I could have gone back to bed. I should have. Instead, I sat on the other end of the couch. We talked for a while about nothing and everything. His college classes, my garden, how fast time was flying. The conversation flowed easier than I expected. And at some point, something shifted. I noticed the way he watched my lips when I spoke, How his voice dropped just slightly when he asked personal questions. I wasn't stupid. I knew the line. I knew where it was. And yet I didn't move away. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the loneliness I'd ignored for far too long. Or maybe it was something else. Something deeper. Something I hadn't let myself feel in years. But I didn't cross that line. Not yet. That night just lingered in the air like a question waiting to be answered. And deep down, I already knew it would be the next morning I woke earlier than usual. The sky was still a soft grey. The kind that makes everything feel quiet and unsure. I wrapped myself in my old robe and made my way to the kitchen, trying to shake off the strange weight in my chest. I wasn't expecting to find Aaron already there, barefoot, shirt rumpled, hair still damp from a shower. He was standing at the stove, stirring something in a pan. The smell of eggs and toast filled the air. "I hope you don't mind," he said, looking over his shoulder. "Thought I'd make breakfast. You always used to make it when I stayed over as a kid. Figured I owed you." I smiled, or tried to. "You didn't have to, but thank you." He motioned to the coffee pot already brewing. "Coffee's almost ready too." I sat at the kitchen table, watching him in the soft morning light. He looked more like a man than I remembered, more sure of himself. And yet there was still that boy. In him, that gentle way he moved, the careful way he spoke. When he set a plate in front of me, our hands brushed. I felt it sharp, brief, but there, that unspoken awareness. We both seemed to be dancing around. We ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt close, familiar, but new. After breakfast, he helped me with the dishes. The way he stood beside me at the sink, drying plates while I rinsed, reminded me of old rhythms, things couples do quietly without thinking. And that's what shook me, because it felt like something we weren't supposed to be. When we were done, I offered him a towel and some laundry detergent for his wet clothes. He thanked me again, that quiet, sincere way he had, and disappeared into the guest room. I should have stayed busy. I should have gone out. But instead, I found myself wandering into the sunroom, curling up on the chair with my thoughts and the guilt I couldn't quite name. By early afternoon, I heard footsteps behind me. "Hey, Aunt Diane," he said gently. "Can I ask you something?" I looked up. He stood in the doorway, arms folded loosely, eyes searching mine. "Of course. Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions?" he asked. "Like you wake up, do everything you're supposed to, smile when people expect you to, but it's like you're watching your own life from a distance?" I blinked, surprised by the question, surprised by how much it echoed what I'd never said out loud. "All the time," I said softly. He nodded, stepping closer. "I feel that way too, especially lately. Like, I'm stuck between who I used to be and who I'm supposed to become." I wasn't sure what to say. There was something incredibly vulnerable about him in that moment, and something in me wanted to answer it with equal truth. "I used to feel very alive," I said, "before routine, before expectations. I used to feel like my life was mine." Aaron sat on the edge of the ottoman across from me, his knees almost touching mine. "I think you still have that in you," he said, his voice quieter now. "I see it." My breath caught. I didn't know what to say to that, to being seen like that. He didn't move. Neither did I. It wasn't about romance. Not exactly. It was something deeper. A kind of emotional recognition I hadn't felt in years, like someone opening a window in a room I'd long forgotten was there. I don't remember how long we sat like that, but at some point he reached out, just a small touch, his fingers brushing mine. He didn't push. He just stayed there, quiet and respectful, waiting for me to decide. I pulled my hand away, not because I was upset, but because I was scared. Scared of what I was feeling. Scared of what it meant. Scared of what would happen if I didn't. I need some air, I said quickly, rising to my feet. I'm going to the garden. He nodded, not chasing me, not making it harder. I stepped outside into the warm breeze, sunlight dappling the grass, the scent of lavender filling the air. I stood there barefoot, staring at the wind chimes swaying gently on the porch. My life had always been measured in neat little rows, chores, calendars, dinner plans, birthdays. But this was messy. This was uncertain. And it terrified me, because part of me wanted to open that door. Part of me wanted to feel again. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Not with him. Not with anyone. At least that's what I told myself. The next 2 days moved in a strange rhythm, like we were both holding our breath, waiting for something to shift, but neither of us daring to push it. Aaron stayed mostly quiet, respectful. He kept busy, reading on the porch, helping me water the plants, even offering to fix the broken hinge on the kitchen cabinet that Mark had promised to repair months ago. And I tried to keep my distance, that every now and then I'd catch him looking at me. Not in a crude or inappropriate way. It was softer than that. Thoughtful, curious, like he was trying to understand something about me. Or maybe just waiting for me to understand something about myself. By Sunday afternoon, the house had grown heavy with silence. Mark was due home in a few hours, and we both felt the clock ticking. The storm from Friday had left the air cool and still, and I found myself in the living room folding laundry while the television mumbled in the background. Aaron walked in holding a small photo album I hadn't seen in years. Found this on the shelf in the guest room, he said, holding it up. Hope you don't mind. I smiled. Not at all. That thing's older than both of us put together, I think. He sat beside me and opened it across his knees. The pages were thick and yellowing, corners curled, the pictures faded, but full of memory. There was one of Mark and me from our first Christmas together. Me in a red sweater holding a crook little tree we'd hauled from a nearby lot. You looked so happy, Aaron said softly, studying the photo. I paused, folding a towel slowly. I was. He looked up. Are you still? Now that question hit me like a stone dropped in still water. I don't know, I answered truthfully. I think I stopped asking myself that a while ago. Aaron nodded and closed the album gently, setting it aside. You deserve to be. I looked at him. Really looked at him. There was no pretense in his voice, no hidden motive, just honesty. You're very kind, I said. But kindness like that can be dangerous sometimes. He tilted his head. Why? Because it makes people feel things they're not sure they should. His eyes didn't leave mine. Feelings aren't wrong, Diane. What we do with them, that's the part we have to be careful with. My heart beat louder in my chest. I stood up, needing space, air, anything. I think you should get your things together. Mark will be home soon. He didn't argue, just nodded quietly and rose from the couch. But as he turned to walk down the hallway, he stopped at the archway and looked back. For what it's worth, this weekend meant something to me. Not just the quiet moments. The way you listened. The way you see people. It mattered. Then he was gone, the sound of his footsteps fading into the guest room. I sat back down, hands trembling slightly, unsure if it was from fear, regret, or something else entirely. I hadn't done anything wrong. Not technically, but emotionally. I knew lines had been blurred, feelings stirred. Parts of me that had been quiet for years had been woken up by someone I never expected. Someone too close, too complicated. By the time Mark got home, Aaron was already gone. He'd left a note on the kitchen table. Short, neat handwriting. Thank You for the warmth, the honesty, and the silence. I won't forget it. I folded it carefully and slipped it into the drawer by the fridge where old keys, receipts, and forgotten notes lived. That night, Mark told me all about his fishing trip. While I nodded and smiled, my hands folded politely in my lap. But my thoughts were elsewhere. Not on Aaron exactly, but on what he had stirred in me. A question, a longing, a quiet ache I couldn't name just yet. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure if I wanted it to change back. The days after Aaron left felt both ordinary and quietly electric, like the air in the house still held some trace of him. I found myself looking at everything just a little differently. The quiet of the mornings, the space beside me in bed, the lines on my face, that I used to smooth without thinking. It wasn't that I missed him. Not exactly. It was more that he'd cracked something open. A part of me I had packed away so carefully over the years for the sake of steadiness, marriage, maturity, for safety. One evening, a week later, I was in the garden kneeling by the roses, pulling out weeds I'd let grow too long. The sun was low, and the sky had that soft gold glow that made everything feel a little suspended in time. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. Hope I'm not crossing a line. Just wanted to say I'm grateful for that weekend, and I hope you're okay. I sat back on my heels staring at the screen. My first instinct was to ignore it, to pretend none of it had happened, to tuck it all away like a passing storm. But I didn't. I replied, I'm okay. I've been thinking a lot. Thank you for reminding me I still can. He didn't respond right away, and I didn't wait for one. Just sending it felt honest, liberating in a way I hadn't expected. That night, after Mark had gone to bed, I sat in the living room with an old journal. I hadn't opened in years. I flipped through page after page of who I used to be before marriage, before the routines, before I began defining myself only through others. There were entries about dreams I'd forgotten I had, things I wanted to learn, places I wanted to go, feelings I hadn't allowed myself to feel. I didn't write about Aaron. I wrote about me. The next morning, over coffee, Mark noticed something different in my face. You look rested, he said. I smiled. I feel lighter. He raised an eyebrow, curious but not probing. And I didn't offer more. Some things weren't meant to be shared. Some things were private, not because they were shameful, but because they were sacred. A few weeks passed. Aaron didn't message again, and I didn't expect him to. Whatever that weekend had been, it was a mirror, not a door. He wasn't the answer. He was the question. A question that changed me. One afternoon, I stood in front of the mirror in our bedroom and looked at myself. Not to judge, not to correct, but just to see. And I did. I saw the woman I had become. A woman still capable of feeling deeply, of being moved, of choosing. Mark came in from the garage, wiping his hands on a towel. I was thinking, I said, turning to him, we should take that trip to the coast, the one we always talked about but never planned. He looked surprised. Really? Now? Why not now? I said. What are we waiting for? He smiled a little crooked, a little amused. You're serious? I nodded completely. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't about Aaron. It never really was. It was about remembering that I still had the capacity to be surprised, even by myself. What happened that weekend wasn't a betrayal. It was an awakening, a quiet reminder that even in the stillness of a long marriage, in the comfort of a familiar life, there can be tremors. There can be questions that lead you back to yourself. And sometimes that's exactly what we